Good evening, everyone. This is Hima Bindu speaking from Team Admissions from the Indian School of Business located in India. We have two campuses in Hyderabad and Mohali. I would like to briefly tell you about the school before we get into this webinar, where you can listen to Mr. Thomas Hyland, an esteemed alumni of ISB, his views on the school and how an MBA here helped him. Briefly, to tell you about the school, we have the Indian School of Business. Its vision is to be an internationally top-ranked, research-driven, independent management institution that grooms future leaders for India and the world. We are a Financial Times top-ranked school. We have research centers who do extensive research in various areas like finance, entrepreneurship, leadership, and currently healthcare as well as manufacturing. We are also independent in that it's a merit-based institute, and Tom is one of our alumni who we feel is going to be a future leader, and there are many more in the pipeline who are going to come. Extremely proud of them. Briefly to tell you about the school, we have associations with Wharton, Kellogg, London Business School, MIT Sloan, and Fletcher. The association runs on three broad parameters of research as well as sharing faculty and designing our curriculum as per the curriculum at these global schools. We are an ACSB accredited school. 5% of schools across the world have this. ISB is one of the few schools in Asia which has this accreditation. It is the full form for this is Association of American Collegiate Schools of Business. We have a one-year full-time residential program in management, which is a very intense and enriching learning experience. It brings in a lot of managerial perspective and inculcates habits of leadership. It is a lifelong personal and professional success, path to personal as well as professional success. More than anything else, what the program gives you is it literally makes your mind a rubber band, which expands your bounds of thinking. It is a one-year program, starts April and finishes April. One of the distinctive features of ISB is that we have over 100 professors each year visiting the campus and teaching on campus, and we have 50 resident faculty. All these faculty are from top-ranked schools across the world, and it is a best combination of faculty that you can get in the world. All the faculty are PhDs and research-oriented who bring in cutting-edge curriculum to the classroom for you. This is probably the only school you can speak about which brings in a combination of Wharton, London Business School, as well as Kellogg professors under one roof. Some of the highlights of the learning, other than the core courses as well as the elective courses, which are available pretty much in every business school, is the case study approach and some of the intense focus we have on leadership and general management. We have specializations in 8 areas a student can choose to do. Some of the highlights are the leadership development program, which is essential for all students, the experiential learning program, which is a real-time consulting project students work on, and for people who have their own entrepreneurial dreams, we have PAEV, where they help you put your business plan down in the classroom. The school also has diverse as well as high-achieving professionals who interact with each other and network through each other in various clubs and seminars and conferences. We bring in around 50 speakers through these conferences, and they help you network with them and learn from each other. Not just the theory that the professors tell you, but also you gain insights from the peers who are diverse and high achievers. And this is actually taught by professionals, speakers who come in from media, entertainment, healthcare, finance, business, in various areas, and tell you the practical area of business and how it is done in the real-time world. We have two campuses, a 260-acre Hyderabad campus and a 75-acre Mohali campus. Both are air-conditioned state-of-the-art campuses. It is one school, two campuses. The admissions and placement processes are common for both schools. We also have a diverse and intensive, distinctive alumni network, which is growing fast, over 5,200 alumni. And at last count, it is interesting to know that over 6% of our alumni are based just in North America. One of the highlights of the schools is the careers at ISB. And we are convinced that there is a global demand for top MBA, and there is a talent for a war for talent, and strategic hiring is happening. And candidates usually, companies usually look for great learning skills, competencies, as well as attitude. These are the three key things that a school looks at, that a recruiter looks at when recruiting somebody for a particular position, and these are given in ample at ISB. Careers at ISB, we have a learning and development team as well as a corporate relations team. One helps you assess your competencies and skills, finds out your dream job, dream role, and grooms you for that particular role by telling you what are the skills that you have to get to fit into that particular role. We also have corporate relations. We know that the economy is bad, and but our recruitment process works on relationships with these top-notch firms. We partner with the business, understand and map out the business needs for the next couple of years as to which industries are going to recruit in what capacity. And that helps us plan better for careers for students. At last glance, 741 students participated in placements this year. We had 423 companies which recruited from the school, and these companies made 819 offers. We even had 69 companies from 8 different countries come and make 63 offers to students here. ISB is well reputed for its function and industry shifts. So most students, around 70% of them, make a career shift. It could be a function or an industry shift. These are the shifts that have happened at ISB, and you will see that the incoming class predominantly comes with a technology consulting or sales and marketing, and you will find that they go back with the shift into general management and sales and marketing, as well as strategy consulting and other areas. These are some of the recruiters who come in at ISB. Simply put, the top 4 in all sectors come. More than the recruiters, what is interesting to know is ISB is a part of global leadership development programs of 25 different companies like Siemens, Lufthansa, LVMH, HSBC. This is a great opportunity for students to get into the leadership track of companies. Like IBM recruited a lady this year to be placed in New York. Admissions to ISB are pretty simple. It is usual practice that happens. There are 3 ways you can apply to ISB. One is the Young Leaders Program in your pre-final year of your undergraduation. There's an early entry option, which is a deferred admission that you can seek for students with less than 2 years of work experience. And of course, there is the regular entry, which is you need a minimum of 2 years work experience. All you have to do is log in and apply by the first deadline of September 15th or the second deadline of November 30th. And the early entry option is January 15th. The essentials required to apply to ISB are you have to be a graduate, work experience, and a GMAT. The application captures your academic qualifications, your employment details. We need 4 essays and 2 recommendations. The essay questions probe you to introspect on why you want to do an MBA and what defines you. It tries to get an overall picture of your leadership potential, what are your academic credentials, as well as your personal attributes. Do you have the spark in it? Once the application is evaluated, you are shortlisted for an interview to be done by telephone if you're located abroad, or a personal interview in India. The school has various scholarships which are given based on merit and means, and we have corporate scholarships once you come into the classroom, and 15% of students receive scholarships. We also have arrangements with 10 different banks who give collateral free loans, and you have very good flexible payment options. Over 70% of students take loans at ISB. The way you can contact us is through INTL admissions at isb.edu, international admissions at isb.edu, or on the following phone numbers. And you can follow us on Facebook as well as Twitter at your convenience. Reaching out to us is not a big issue. But without further ado, I would like to bring in Thomas Hyland. He is a man who was on a train and had an adventure and finally ended up in India. And I think Tom thought he's coming in for a train journey. But this is, I think, what we say in India, karma and destiny. That has bonded him to India, and now he is working in India, formerly working with, Goldman Sachs and in a company under Goldman Sachs, and then came to ISB with his wife Krista, and now there are threesome who travel frequently to Bangalore, though Tom is based here, and has set up his own venture and co-founded and partnered at Aspada Investment Advisors. And he's working on as a venture capital investments in underserved markets. I would like to share with you and introduce Tom to you, and please type in your questions you would like me to ask Tom. Meanwhile, let me briefly let Tom introduce himself and tell a story to you from in his own way. Tom, over
Terrific.
to you.
Thank you very much, Hima.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hima. And good morning or evening, everyone, depending on where you're dialing in from. I'll just briefly take a couple minutes just on my own background, because it does very much tie into my experience in ending up at ISB and what I continue to do in India. I do live in India. I'm based in Bangalore, having moved there shortly after graduation from ISB. But I started my career at Goldman Sachs in San Francisco, where I worked on the wealth management side. Spent a year at a hedge fund following. And during this time, this would have been 2004, early 2005, as an equity analyst, spending a lot of time looking at global markets. I spent a lot of time looking at both China and India. And at the time, these were two markets that obviously had garnered a lot of attention given the extraordinary growth that was occurring, but were markets that were very foreign to me. And I felt incredibly naive about these parts of the world that I simply did not really understand, which led me to, in 05, after a number of years at Goldman, to quit my job, put on a backpack and travel extensively throughout Asia, very much on a fact-finding trip for about a year and a half, which I spent about 8 months of that in India, meeting with a number of professionals in the investment space, gathering information, and as he mentioned, traveling all throughout the country. I spent a lot of time on the trains in India in fairly rural settings, north, south, east, and west. Came back from that trip and was very fortunate to be one of the first employees in the U.S. of something called Sea Change Capital, which was started by former chairman, vice chairman of Goldman Sachs, as well as a number of others. It focused on the domestic U.S. investment space, but never lost sight of the fact that I wanted to return to India. And between both my time in the investment space in the U.S., having had a taste of emerging markets in India, after a few years of sea change, started thinking about how I could return to the Indian market in a more professional capacity, and was actually introduced and started to learn about ISB through one of our investors in our own fund. At that time, there was a fund being set up at ISB by some very high-profile external investors. One was George Soros, who's a very, very famous global investor. The other is Pierre Midyar, who is the founder of eBay. And the last investor was actually Google. And the three of them came together and funded $20 million into an early stage venture capital fund to focus on investments in underserved areas, affordable education, low cost and affordable healthcare, skills training, opportunities that work to improve agricultural efficiencies. And this really caught my eye. And through that, I started to learn about ISB, some of the work that was being done with this specific fund that ISB is a partner in, as well as ISB's also centers also around things like urbanization and big macro trends, that are affecting both India as well as, many of the changing demographics in Asia. As I came to learn about the school, right, and the people who were involved in helping to set it up, of the curriculum, of the kind of education that one could gain in that market, coupled with a desire to actually be in that market, and knowing from my travels that there is no substitute for actually being in a specific market if it's a place you want to be in, led me to enroll. I'll talk about my experience at ISB, but subsequently this funding in question is what I now run with a partner. And so, it's fair to say that my experience at ISB is very much intertwined with what I'm doing personally. Now, I certainly would not be, running a venture capital fund in India with the kind of, backing that we have, were it not for the platform that ISB has given me, right? And truly, it is a very unique institution and, infrastructure. Not only within India, I think, in Asia more broadly. And as one thinks about going to school in this part of the world, if you're a U.S.-based student, there are not many institutions that really, race to the top, that attract world-class faculty, that attract world-class students, who could really be going to business school anywhere, and I think offers a very compelling. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. There's some background noise. You could just mute. And offers a very compelling proposition for a student that not only wants a world-class MBA, but wants to do it in a market that offers tremendous growth potential. For those of you who follow the macro news, obviously there's been a lot written on India, right? And maybe you've seen the rupee depreciation or stories on the current account deficit, and so the country is experiencing a slowdown, but relatively speaking, it's still expected to grow at 4.5 or 5% next year, right? Which the Eurozone is flat for the foreseeable future. The U.S. is growing at 2%, and so despite these headlines, there's still extraordinary opportunity for people who think entrepreneurially and want to launch a career in a market like India or more broadly in the region. So, to me, that's not a deterrent or really much of an issue. I think, if anything, it opens up a lot of opportunity for entrepreneurial pursuits. So, why don't I can stop there if there's any questions, or I could just get into, a little bit about, kind of what I think of the school or the experience. What would make sense?
Sure, Tom. Tom, while we are waiting for the questions to come in, I would like you to share with the audience, what are the 3 key takeaways that you took from the school or India as such?
So there's a couple of things, and I had spent time in India, obviously before coming to ISB, but there's in India, to many people who come from outside of India, requires a certain learning curve, right? It is a place where I feel constantly intellectually challenged and constantly pushed, and as such growing, because one of the things you take away from is that even though you are in business school in India, and there is certainly a large international contingent that comes, there's extraordinary diversity within India, and I think sometimes outside of India you can think of it as one market, but it is a very, very diverse school, even within India, because you have people who are coming from every state in India that bring different, customs, different languages. There's upwards of 20 languages in India, and countless more sub-languages, different food, and very different traditions. And so you have a terrific melting pot in Hyderabad and Mohali, even within India itself, right? And so there's a tremendous amount of learning that you'll do as an international student, but also that students are garnering amongst themselves. The second, I think that is often lost sometimes in the big macro headlines, that you see now around India or China and slowing growth. These are big macro stories, but the fact is, at least where I focus, the micro stories in India are extraordinary, and there is an incredible culture of entrepreneurship. And ISB is very much placed at the center of that. I mean, it's fair to say that obviously when the heads of big multinational companies, right, or people who are involved in the investing ecosystem come through India, ISB is usually on their itinerary, right? And as a school that is very unique within the Indian ecosystem, there are lots of opportunities to interact and network with people who are decision makers globally. I've certainly met the heads of many Fortune 500 companies, including Lloyd Blankfein of Goldman Sachs on the ISB campus. Because these people come through regularly, they have incredible relationships with the school, and you have lots of opportunities to interact there as well. I guess the last takeaway. There's many takeaways, but I think one other major takeaway is just feeling humbled to some degree. At least I did, at the extraordinary talent that I was surrounded by. Like I said, I mean, I have peers who have gone on to do extraordinary things and carve out positions as leaders and start companies in very exciting growth markets. And so, the strength of the alumni network is really profound and is a very powerful tool within India, but also more broadly. I find that I draw on it, very regularly. I use it to bounce investment ideas. I use it to find potential investment opportunities. And so, that network and that relationship. Obviously, many people talk about networks when they go to business school, right? But I have found it to be very true in this case, partly because versus schools perhaps that have been around for 50, 100 years, right? They have very large networks. I think actually having a relatively smaller network is helpful because people are genuinely helpful and you can access them. And so, that has really not just been a talking point right around network. It's actually been something that's very valuable. And we have a very vibrant alumni ecosystem, and that's something that has been very beneficial.
Wonderful. Tom, did you do the PAEV?
I did not do a PAEV, although I know many people do. And just to explain, the PAEV is short for Planning and Entrepreneurial Venture. I actually, I did some independent study work myself, more focused on the venture I'm running now. You can actually say yes, I did a PAEV, but in an unstructured way. I focused myself on.
Tom, there's a question. There's a question here which says, can you speak to your entrepreneur programs, electives, programs, and how do you groom aspiring entrepreneurs?
Yep.
And I think you'll be best equipped to answer this.
Absolutely. So like many business schools, you do have a core term, right, which would be the first 4 terms, which you go through, corporate finance, marketing, micro, macro, all the general course. The second half is where you can start to pick and choose your electives. I took many electives in and around entrepreneurship, and there are some terrific ones. We have a program. So let me just speak to some of the electives. Right, there are a number on new business creation. There are a number on general entrepreneurship. There are also some, I think, that are incredibly interesting that you can only get in a market like India. One is called rural marketing, which is taught by one of India's premier branding experts in rural marketing, which teaches you how to think and understand more rural settings and reaching consumers that are not one monolithic buying base, but rather quite diverse. There are a number of corporate finance geared venture capital courses. And so there's a large number of entrepreneurially focused courses to take. I actually majored in entrepreneurship, right? And so it took the whole list of them. And to me, just around structuring your thinking, around new business creation, around finding new markets, I found it incredibly helpful. There's a couple of ways that the school fosters entrepreneurship. One is that there is an in-house incubation center, focused on helping both student-run businesses as well as businesses around the entrepreneurial ecosystem interact with local funding sources as well as mentors and professionals who have been in the space. ISB is also very strategically situated in the Hyderabad campus in what is a very vibrant business community. It's in a part of Hyderabad where you have many businesses, Microsoft, Infosys, many of the big U.S. firms are there, and it is a very entrepreneurial and vibrant culture. I don't know how much many of you know about Hyderabad if you have not been to India. Many people hear about Bangalore. Hyderabad in many ways is a rival. It is an IT hub just like Bangalore. It is far beyond Bangalore in terms of biotech and medical devices. So it is a very vibrant place, and so there's lots of access to early stage investors and entrepreneurs. There's a number of very good venture capital firms that are based in Hyderabad as well. And being an ISB student, you have access to all of these people, right? There is a lot of activity that revolves around the school in this fashion, and so it's very easy to access people. Any other?
So there's a question here which is for admissions, which says, does ISB consider all GMAT scores? What if you have taken it more than once? This is a technical question. We take the highest score among all your GMAT scores that you have considered. In addition to what Tom says about the incubator and everything, you have a specialization in entrepreneurship that you can do at ISB. The next question, Tom says, is a PGP necessary if you already have an MBA?
Well, so I guess it's a very personal decision. I guess if you already have an MBA, I would question why it is you want to go back to business school. In that case, there could be a couple of reasons, right? And you see this in the past, not only with ISB but other schools. One is perhaps is if the institution that you have your first MBA from perhaps might not be of the same caliber, right, of where you want to go. In that case, sure, you can have another MBA on top of that, and I think that could be viewed very favorably if that's something you want to do. The other thing, and I think specific to depending on who asked this question, is the PGP, right, which is the equivalent of the MBA in India from ISB, will give you entree to the Indian market that perhaps the current MBA you have does not, right? Because having been in market, having not only the degree from ISB, I think importantly interactions in India, right, and understanding both the cultural nuance, the business aspects of how to navigate in India, having been a student in ISB, I think is important, right? And so if it is a market that you see yourself working in, or South Asia more broadly, a degree from ISB will give you entree to those markets, right? So I guess between one of those two, it's dependent specific on what it is you want to do.
If you have to add to what Tom has said, if you are of Indian origin, you probably did your MBA without work experience earlier, and now you see that you need another value add or learning that you require to perform better in your career, and probably you feel that another MBA will help you. A PGP is the right solution because it's a one-year program and it's greater opportunity cost that you finish it in 12 months. So it's a great way to add value to your career. So just go ahead and do it. We do get a lot of people who want to do their second MBA at ISB.
And I think, Hima, if I could just, you raise a important point there, Hima, is that, as you mentioned, many of the students, and this, this to some degree specific to those of Indian origin, right? At ISB, you're not surrounded by freshers, right? I'll use that term you'll be familiar with. Meaning, many people are coming with some work experience. As opposed to just finishing undergrad and going straight to doing an MBA. And I think that's actually quite important. And you can see it in the classroom because there is no substitute. I think for some real world work experience, but also I think importantly life experience, right? And so there's a level of maturity in the conversations that I think you find, which help in the learning, right? And being surrounded by a peer group, that you can associate with, and that bring distinct facets, in conversations. And so I think that very much is an advantage, and perhaps another reason to go back and do another degree.
The next question, Tom, is what support and opportunities does ISB give for startups?
So, as I had mentioned, there is an in-house incubator that does connect student ventures with the outside funding world. In addition, it does also provide some stipend startup capital, as well as for those who make it into the program after graduation. Provides a stipend for housing and living expenses, right? So you can actually work to incubate your venture on campus following graduation. And what comes with that is, I think, importantly, access to a large network of venture investors in the ecosystem. If you look at who was involved in helping to set up ISB as well as some of the governing board, right? There's some very recognizable names, and those are people that stay very closely involved, and that are very interested in helpful in trying to foster the next generation of leaders in India. And as many of you who are focused on India on this call might know, right, there is an enormous push right now on early stage entrepreneurship in India, right? It's gaining much more momentum. There are a lot of people who are trying to start ventures, and ISB is one of the hubs, if you will, of that entrepreneurial activity. So there is a lot of networking that can be done with early stage investors, with later stage investors, with people who have started businesses and now want to mentor or act as angel investors. And it is a terrific platform for you to bring all those together and meet and interact with people.
I see. The next question, Tom says, can you discuss student diversity and peer-to-peer learning at ISB? What was the study group you were in, Tom? And your accommodation, I'm sure, had diverse people in it too.
Absolutely, right. And again, I'll define diversity in terms of background. Clearly, many of my classmates were very, very accomplished academically, right? And many of them were extraordinary engineers. I'd say that said, unlike many other Indian MBA universities, it is not solely a group of engineers, right? You have people who come from media backgrounds. One of my closest friends at school was a reporter for CNBC. You have people that come from artistic and creative backgrounds. There are people who have started businesses and been entrepreneurs. And so you do have a range of talent that comes to the fore, and I think that actually is quite unique within India in many ways. There is, every year a number of international students like myself. I was one of a group. The students came from Spain, Ukraine, Brazil, from Taiwan. A whole number of places. But then also, again, for those who are not as familiar with India, extraordinary diversity within India, and a large group coming together. And truly, and I think this is perhaps one thing, again, I spent time in India, but that, may strike people as, just how diverse that group is. So there's a tremendous amount of learning, I think, even amongst Indians, of cultural learning that occurs, as well as, range of experiences and backgrounds. And so I did not find at all, given that the school is in India, that there was any lack of diversity, right? Both in terms of people's perspectives as well as, professional trajectory.
Sure. From the school side, I can say that we ensure there's a lot of diversity in the class. You get army majors, dentists, fashion designers, architects, and quite a few others, accountants, who come in. Predominant class strength has engineers, but these engineers again are architectural engineers or a Tata Steel manufacturer or an NTPC thermal power engineer, or an engineer who works for ITC making flour, or an engineer who's working with Unilever and Cadbury selling chocolates and ice cream. That's the type of diversity we bring in. Tom, the next question is post ISB, what value is added to your profile in terms of knowledge, career growth, etc.? Would you like to elucidate
Yeah,
on
so
how it added value?
absolutely, and as I I had mentioned before, I truly you can say there are talking points around this, but if you look at what I'm doing now and the reasons I went to India in the first place, I mean, ISB has been instrumental, and I maintain very close ties to the school. In fact, hosted a conference at the school. We had 150 people, including our investors from Soros and other people, come down and use the school and stay very involved with the students. And so for me, it has been not only my launching pad, but a place where I also continue to engage regularly, just because primarily of the entrepreneurial ecosystem and the ability to bring people together in the space I look at. So I guess specifically for me there were a number of key takeaways. Right, one is certainly inside of the classroom, and I guess the other for me were learnings outside of the classroom. And having come from outside of India, I'll put important weightage on both. So certainly in the classroom, the rigor of what we experience is on par with any business school in the world, right? I mean, certainly our students are as competent, capable, and driven as you'll find anywhere. And that's coupled with a faculty that is world class, right? We have visiting faculty that come from many of the top schools. If you look at the school's partners, you'll see Wharton, Kellogg, LBS. All these professors actually cycle through regularly and teach different courses, but coupled with a very strong permanent faculty that, whether in India or in the US, have done their PhDs and are now focusing on the school in India. So, the in the classroom learning prepares you for any number of pursuits, right? In my case, it was more around corporate finance, new business creation, entrepreneurship, private equity, venture capital, valuation. Outside of the classroom, again, I think it's very important for me to have garnered some of the cultural nuance, right, and interacting with people from across India, but also understanding business in the Indian context, right? It can be quite different in terms of relationships and in terms of expectations, right? Especially around family businesses and how businesses are viewed. And so, these two pieces together for me were incredibly important. So my career growth truly is linked, to ISB. As I said, there are a couple of hubs of entrepreneurial activity, and one, I think ISB is probably the most robust, and professionally, stay very close to the progress of the school and look for ways to engage.
That's it. Tom, have you visited Mohali campus?
Yes, I have been once, just for a brief talk, although I'm probably not as equipped to speak to the day-to-day at Mohali. Just so people know, the Mohali campus was set up more relatively recently, and after I had graduated.
Before I had to go to Tom, I would, Tom was studied on Hyderabad campus, and then we did not have a Mohali campus. Mohali campus is just 1 year old, but it is as good, if not better, than the Hyderabad campus. And in fact, placements this year have taken place in Mohali campus. And what were your feelings, Tom, when you visited Mohali?
So I think I think India. I think they're playing. It's one school, two campus, but I actually love the role that they're playing, quite frankly. And there's a couple of reasons for it. Mohali, within the school there are different centers of excellence, right? And so Mohali has different centers that are set up from what's in Hyderabad. Certainly what's going on, for those who want to dig into it, around public health in India, which is being run out of Mohali, is actually incredibly exciting. And so, I think what we've done is we've added a lot to the capability of ISB across India by setting up that campus. And, truthfully, Mohali, which is in the Punjab, and Hyderabad and Andhra Pradesh are different markets, right? I mean, the students go back and forth, and it is one school with the two campuses, but I think it speaks to the fact there is a lot of diversity within India, and I think actually very valuably adds different context, because I can tell you, doing business in South India and doing business in North India are different, and I think being able to work in both of those markets is incredibly valuable. And there are not a lot of places where I think you can actually have that test bed that a business school provides to give you such different context. So I think it's a great addition to the ISB family, and would encourage those who choose to enroll to spend time on both campuses. In order to gain, not only, access to the different centers, but different, slightly, perhaps different perspectives, right? Same very high quality curriculum, great teachers and faculty in both places, but also some of the different culture around both places. I don't know, Hima, maybe you have a thought on that as well.
Sure. The Mohali campus is, like I said, state of the art, like the Hyderabad campus. It in fact has more modern facilities. It's located, it has over 70 acres. And it currently has a capacity for 210 students to stay on campus. The campus has 4 different centers of research. They are in the fields of manufacturing, infrastructure, public policy, and healthcare. Like Tom said, there's going to be exciting. These are all 4 of them, if you notice, are industry-related centers, Unlike function-related ones earlier that we have on Hyderabad campus, these are centers focused on industries which are going to have a huge spurt in the future, and that's how they have been planned. The way the faculty is shared across campuses is, if there's faculty, they teach on one campus in the first term, and the same subject is taught in the second campus, second term. That is how it works. So the quality of faculty, the facilities, everything is equally good. Another interesting insight I would like to give you is when a recruiter gets the recruiter handbook of students, the student name, profile, field he's from, firm he wants to go to, and what his interests are defined there, but the student campus location is not given. That's how seriously we take the concept of one school, 2 campuses. And it's just that the recruiter has to shortlist, and he will be placed before the recruiter at that time. And it is still at a nascent stage, and 210 graduates have come out last year, and we're waiting for the second batch to come out this year, and it's growing great guns at Mohali. And that's what I have to add on Mohali. The next question, Tom, is how can one prepare themselves to meet the standards of ISB before applying to the program?
So ISB.
So did you prepare for this, Tom?
Sure. I think ISB is a top-ranked competitive business school, right? And so I think the process will be similar to any other top flight institution, right? And so certainly, I would practice for the GMAT extensively. Again, you can take it more than once, that's fine. And there is no cutoff, right, at the lower range. But again, usually the kinds of scores that you'd see are those that are comparable with any top flight U.S. business school, right? And so, not to put a number on it, but, that's generally on the GMAT score, but that's not the entire picture. It's a combination of your essays as well as your work experience, right? And where the school thinks you can go, right? And so, essays take a lot of time, and I interview regularly students who want to come to ISB, and having been a student, it's evident to me when someone is very sincere in their essays and being thoughtful about what it is they want to do. Oh, and when someone is just kind of going through the motions and saying they volunteer and they do all this good work and they want to form the next big company, right? And so that becomes very evident, and it requires a lot of thought and thinking and tearing up and rewriting your essays and really drilling down to the core. who you are and what it is you want to do, and having that come through. And so I would spend a lot of time thoughtfully on preparing very good essays that actually speak to the core of who you are and demonstrate that you're a driven individual that wants to make a difference in this world in whatever pursuit it is you want to do. If you've been weak academically in certain areas, let's say you're undergraduate, you were not very good in math or accounting. One way to demonstrate to the school that you've taken steps to rectify that is perhaps to take some courses on the side, to bolster that up and get a certificate perhaps in that area that shows that you will be able to, not only shows that you're driven, right, and this is something that's important to you, but also that you can handle the workload that's going to come your way. And even though we talk about this being 1 year, I think it's important to note that this is not MBA light, right? This is not an executive program for people who will work on the side and do this over the course of the year. This is a bona fide 2-year MBA that's in a 12-month time period. And so there is a workload that you need to be able to demonstrate through your past professional as well as academic career that you can handle. And so I think those are a couple of ways that you should be able to to demonstrate that you're not only you can handle the work, but also are the kind of person, right, given your own aspirations, that ISB wants within its alumni community.
Thanks, Tom. I couldn't have stated it better than you. Please remember that there are no cutoffs on GMAT as well as academics at ISB. We are looking for an overall strong application, and if it is a certain focus on work and career, or if it is certain achievements that you would like to showcase, if it is your achievements are in the professional or personal life, please try and put all these in addition to this, and all that Tom says stands good for us. Next is, Tom, can you share your views about career services? How effective were they?
So I'll speak a little bit to it, Hima, and then maybe I'll let you take over. I worked lightly with career services just because I actually did not go into the recruiting process myself. So did not sit for the rounds of placements like many people do. And I was one of the, of which it was a fairly large number, one of the people who came out of the program with a more entrepreneurial bent, which is to say, I had an idea that I wanted to take into fruition. How can ISB help me there, right? So I guess you could say, I used a lot of the ISB networks in my own, career service to get me where I wanted to go, but not part of the formal placement process. For those of you, who are of Indian origin and have been in India, right, that the placement process is much followed and quite hectic. I think ISB, given the strength of its relationships that it has with recruiters, right, whether that's consulting firms, IT services firms, financial services firms, runs, an incredibly tight ship, and across 2 campuses now, right, where recruiters will come not only to Hyderabad, they'll also go to Mohali to meet people. If I look at my people from my class, right? I'm from the class of 2010, so we've been out, more than 3 years now. I would say everyone truly is in a spot they want to be and is incredibly happy. I think with any business school, the first job that you might take out of school is not going to be your last job, right? Many people ended up in terrific places. Some people may have ended up at their second choice. But given what they took away from ISB, given their own drive, the kind of people that they are, the ISB calling card, the alumni network, gives you entree into doing any number of things, right? And the alumni base is strong. And if I look at I'll just tell you, if I look at the venture capital ecosystem in India, or the PE, private equity ecosystem in India, there is an alum at basically every single fund. Right? I'd be hard-pressed not to find an alum in a fund, you name it. So you have the ability as a student to interact with, right, and network with, people across any given domain, right, because the alums are there. What I think is lost and what I think is important is that placement services, whether it's at ISB or any other school, is really upon you, right? I mean, you have to be entrepreneurial about managing your own career and take an onus on yourself to go out and get that job that you want, right? Either through demonstration of your own prowess in the classroom, but probably more your own ability to, to network and to, show drive and dedication. And I think between those two, people who get that formula right are incredibly successful. I don't know, Hima, if you have a thought there.
Sure. Yeah, well put, Tom. All I can add is most students who come to ISB look at career shifts. And like I said, there's a learning and development team which has professionals from various industries and various functions that actually profile you, look at your dream company, dream job, tell the roles and competencies, skills and competencies required. And they actually virtually act like doctors to you who prescribe saying that if you want to crack a strategy consulting job, your communication skills should be good, your analytical skills should be good, and your case solving skills competency should be very, very high. And these are the three aspects on which you should improve. And throughout the year, you're recommended to make at least 20 presentations and solve at least over 50 cases, so that at the end of the year, when you're sitting before a recruiter, you have, you're completely prepared for it. That's the key takeaway that you get at ISB. And also, the 423 that companies that come with a whole range of jobs, whole range of positions, and different geographies that they come from. This particular team helps you actually design your resume to fit into the scope of these particular roles in companies, so that they showcase you in the best possible way as to what are the skills and competencies that you can bring to that particular role. That's how it helps you, in addition to the leadership skills that they bring in. And now, as we are into the last 5 minutes of the session, Tom, there's a last question, and I think this is very, very apt for you, which is, can you talk about student clubs? How did you leverage entrepreneurial and VC club activities?
Sure. So there are lots of clubs on campus. And there's always the ability to start new clubs as well, right? With the school support. I think some of the biggest clubs are obviously the finance club, marketing club. There's a retail club. There's a venture capital private equity club. There's an emerging markets club, as well as a big kind of more broad summit that the ISB puts on called the ILS, which I'll talk about. But each of these clubs is regularly scheduling and hosting events. Right? They may do a conference or two over the course of the year, where they'll bring down leaders from each of the respective domains to campus, invite them down, and schedule a series of talks and discussions around certain distinct areas. Right? So I know in the Emerging Markets Club and the VC and PE Club, we invited down a number of very high-profile venture investors, both from the U.S. as well as in India, right, who were focused on the Indian market. There's one more broad club that I mentioned called ILS, which is ISB's flagship summit every year, where each club gets together and works with the student body president to bring together our major conference, right, where again, we have a number of big names come down and drive a day's worth of discussions. In each of these opportunities, right, going to the second part of that question is, how do you leverage? Again, there's extraordinary opportunity to not only glean knowledge, right, within the discussions that go on, but network. And I think many of the club presidents and those who are actively involved with the clubs have an unparalleled opportunity to speak to leaders, in domains they're interested in a more informal setting. Right, and really try to get to know opportunities that are out there, talk about, their own experiences and where they'd like to go after school. And so, as I mentioned, ISB being a real hub for activity in India around, entrepreneurship and business, gives you unparalleled access to people like this. I mean, it's true that people will come to campus, if you invite them down, and, are happy to speak and engage with students. And so, there's a lot of opportunities throughout the year to engage via the clubs in these kinds of settings. But also, again, I think any business school student, ISB especially, right, you need to be entrepreneurial about your career. The ISB calling card gives you the opportunity to engage many of these people on your own, right? And so I think there's lots of ways to work, both with the clubs and in parallel with the clubs.
And now the final thing I wanted you to throw some light on is, Tom, this is something that struck me when international students visited campus. They were speaking about how, the fee, the accommodation, a residential program was a completely new concept to them. Like there's no commute, no headaches of maintenance, it's completely serviced, and you get to focus just on learning. And that was a wonderful package, they said, which they really didn't comprehend off campus. Did you feel the same way when you came in?
Absolutely, and I don't know how many on this call have had the opportunity to visit the campus, or certainly you've seen pictures, perhaps, but that might not do justice. And I'm speaking to Hyderabad. Mohali is also terrific, but Hyderabad is where my home was. The the campus is in itself just stunningly beautiful, quite frankly, right? It's a 300-acre, beautifully landscaped entity where you have this fascinating building, right, which serves as the center, which has a great room in it and surrounded by the classrooms. It is a real beehive of activity. And surrounding it, you have these, what we call the student villages, where everybody lives. There are endless opportunities for, sport. We have squash courts, we have basketball courts, we have soccer fields, we have a cricket pitch. I mean, you name it. As well as study and relaxation and recreation. And so it's a fabulous place to spend a year. I know most people, when people leave, they look back longingly on the time they spent at that campus as being one of the best years of their life, not only in the classroom, but outside the classroom. And so I think it's quite unique, and I think it's something that, is a treasured aspect about the school that, we perhaps, don't talk enough about, right? More about in the classroom, outside of the classroom, but adds to the overall experience you have at ISB as a huge plus.
Thank you so much, Tom. I should thank you and thank Beat the GMAT for a wonderful session and sharing your views on what India, Asia, and ISB had to offer you. And I'm sure that the rising dollar makes the ROI on the program much, much more tempting at 70 rupees a dollar. This program with professors here is actually a steal. That's wonderful.
It's true. That's right. It was much more expensive when I went, so you're getting a much better deal.
Good. Thank you so much, Tom, and thank you, Beat the GMAT, for facilitating the whole thing, and we'll catch up later. Thank you, everyone, for participating in it. Any further questions you have, like we said, you can write to us at PGP Admissions, and we would be happy to revert to you on any further things. Do log into the application and start your application. Thank you, Tom.
Okay, all the best, everyone. Take care.